The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the small village of Motet. Birds chirped merrily, oblivious to the tension brewing within Mongi's household. The children, Kofi and Amora, played outside, their laughter a stark contrast to the undercurrents of unease that flowed through the air. Amina, Mongi's wife, hurriedly packed her bags, her face a mask of worry. Her mother had fallen ill, and she needed to travel to the neighboring village to care for her. As she kissed her children goodbye, she cast a wary glance at her husband. "Mongi, please take care of the children and Nia while I'm away," she implored. "I'll be back as soon as I can." Mongi nodded, a forced smile on his lips. "Don't worry, Amina. Everything will be fine." As Amina's figure disappeared down the dusty path, Mongi turned his attention to Nia, the young house girl who had been with them for a year. She was a shy girl, barely 18, with a past shrouded in mystery. She worked diligently, always keeping her head down, her eyes never meeting Mongi's. That evening, as the sun set and darkness cloaked the village, Mongi found himself alone with Nia. The children had retired to their room, and the house was eerily silent. Mongi's eyes followed Nia as she moved about the kitchen, her slender frame silhouetted against the dim light. "Nia," he called, his voice low and commanding. "Come here." Nia froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She turned slowly, her eyes wide with fear. Mongi's gaze was intense, predatory. She knew what he wanted, and every fiber of her being screamed for her to run, but her feet remained rooted to the spot. Mongi approached her, his breath hot on her neck. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured, his hand reaching out to caress her cheek. Nia flinched, her mind racing. She had heard stories of men like Mongi, men who took what they wanted without regard for the consequences. She had hoped she would never find herself in such a situation, but here she was, trapped and alone. Outside, the children huddled by the door, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. They had heard their father's voice, and something about it made them uneasy. Kofi, the older of the two, held his sister close, his young mind trying to make sense of the scene unfolding before them. As the darkness enveloped the village, Mongi's intentions became unmistakably clear. His eyes, usually kind and gentle, now bore a sinister gleam. Nia stood frozen, her breath shallow, her heart pounding like a drum in the silence of the night. "Nia," Mongi repeated, his voice a low growl. "Come closer. Don't be afraid." Nia's body trembled, her mind screaming for her to resist, to run, but her legs were like lead. She took a hesitant step forward, her eyes searching for an escape that seemed increasingly distant. Mongi's hand, rough and demanding, grasped her arm, pulling her closer. The children, hidden behind the door, watched in horrified silence. Kofi's small hands clenched into fists, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and confusion. Amora, younger and more vulnerable, clung to her brother, her sobs muffled against his chest. In the dim light of the kitchen, Mongi's actions became more aggressive, his demeanor shifting from a husband to a predator. Nia's cries, though soft, pierced the stillness of the night, a silent scream for help that went unheard. Outside, the night seemed to close in, the only sounds the distant call of crickets and the rustle of leaves. The children's eyes, wide with terror, reflected the gruesome scene unfolding before them. They could hear the muffled sobs and pleas, the clattering of kitchen utensils, the sounds of a struggle that no child should ever witness. As the minutes stretched into an eternity, the children's fear turned to resolve. Kofi, with a surge of courage that belied his years, gently pried Amora's fingers from his shirt. "We have to do something," he whispered, his voice trembling. "We can't let him hurt her." Amora, still in shock, nodded silently. Together, they crept towards the kitchen door, their small hearts beating as one. The door, slightly ajar, revealed the horrifying scene within. Mongi, his face twisted with lust and greed, and Nia, her eyes wide with terror, her resistance growing weaker by the second. "Papa, stop!" Kofi's voice rang out, breaking the silence like a thunderclap. The room froze. Mwangi turned, his eyes wide with shock, his grip on Nia's arm slackening. The children, though terrified, had found their voice, their resolve stronger than their fear. The silence that followed was deafening. Nia, with a strength born of desperation, pushed Mwangi away, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and fear. She stumbled back, her clothes disheveled, her body trembling. The children, their faces pale and eyes wide, stood frozen, the weight of what they had witnessed heavy on their small shoulders. Mwangi, his face contorted with rage and humiliation, lunged towards the children. "You little brats," he shouted, his voice a roar of fury. "How dare you interfere?" Kofi, his voice trembling but firm, stood his ground. "You can't do this, Papa. It's wrong. We won't let you hurt her." Amina's words echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of his promise to protect his family. But in that moment, Mwangi's rage was unstoppable. He lunged forward, his hands outstretched, but the children, fueled by a bravery they didn't know they possessed, dodged his grasp. Kofi grabbed Amara's hand, and together, they fled from the kitchen, their hearts pounding like drums in the night. As they ran, the echoes of Mwangi's screams chased them through the darkened house. They burst into the night, their cries for help swallowed by the darkness, their fear mingling with the chill of the evening air. They ran towards the village square, where the few remaining villagers gathered around a flickering fire, their faces turning towards the children's cries. "Mama! Papa!" Kofi's voice cut through the night, a desperate plea for help. The villagers, startled and confused, turned towards the children, their faces etched with concern. Among them was old Chief Omori, a wise and respected elder, who stepped forward, his eyes narrowing with understanding. "What's happened, Kofi?" Chief Omori asked, his voice calm but commanding. "Where is your mother?" Kofi, his breath ragged and his voice trembling, managed to choke out the words. "Papa. Papa is hurting Nia. We saw him, we saw everything. Please, Chief Omori, you have to help us." The village square fell silent, the fire's flicker casting long shadows over the gathered villagers. Chief Omori's eyes, filled with a mix of sorrow and anger, turned towards the children. "Stay here," he said softly, his voice a solemn promise. "I will go and see what has happened." As Chief Omori moved towards Mwangi's house, the villagers, their curiosity and concern piqued, followed in silence. The night was still, the only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. Mwangi, still in the kitchen, his rage now replaced by a chilling calm, stood over Nia, who lay on the floor, her body bruised and broken. The door burst open, and Chief Omori, followed by the villagers, entered the room. The sight before them was one of horror and disbelief. Mwangi, his face pale and his eyes empty, stood over Nia, who lay motionless, her body a testament to the brutality of his actions. The villagers gasped, their faces pale with shock and disgust. Mwangi, Chief Omari's voice was calm but firm, a commanding presence in the midst of the chaos. "What have you done?" Mwangi, his eyes vacant and his body trembling, looked up at the chief. I don't know. I lost control. I didn't mean to." Chief Omari shook his head, his eyes filled with sorrow. "There is no excuse for such behavior, Mwangi. You have broken the trust of your family and the village. You will face the consequences of your actions." As the villagers gathered around, their faces filled with a mix of anger and pity, Amina's voice, a mixture of pain and disbelief, broke through the silence. "Mwangi, how could you? How could you do this to us, to our children?" Mwangi, his head bowed in shame, had no answer. The weight of his actions, the horror of what he had done, was too much to bear. The villagers, their faces stern and unforgiving, began to whisper among themselves, their anger and disappointment palpable. Chief Omori, his voice firm and commanding, addressed the gathering. "We must not let this act go unpunished. Mongi must face the village's judgment. We will convene the council of elders to decide his fate." As the villagers murmured in agreement, Mongi, still in shock, was led away by Chief Omori and the village guards. The night, once filled with the sounds of crickets and the rustling of leaves, was now silent, the only sounds the distant cries of a lone night bird. Nia, now surrounded by the villagers, was gently lifted from the floor, her body weak and bruised but her spirit unbroken. The children, still in shock, clung to each other, their eyes filled with tears and fear. Amina, her heart shattered, held her children close, her sobs mingling with the night air. As the village council gathered under the flickering light of the fire, the atmosphere was heavy with tension and anticipation. Chief Omori, his voice strong and clear, began the proceedings. "We are gathered here to address the heinous act committed by Mongi. The evidence is clear, and the pain inflicted upon Nia and her family is undeniable. We must decide on a course of action that upholds justice and restores the balance of our community." The elders, their faces solemn and their eyes filled with wisdom, listened in silence. The village council, a group of respected elders and community leaders, had the task of delivering justice. The room was filled with a tense silence, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the occasional rustle of leaves. As the debate ensued, Mongi, his head bowed in shame, listened to the words of the elders. The accusations were clear, the evidence undeniable. The villagers, their faces filled with anger and sorrow, spoke of the betrayal, the broken trust, and the pain inflicted upon Nia and her family. Chief Omori, his voice steady and commanding, brought the council to a decision. After careful deliberation, the council has reached a verdict. Mongi, you are hereby banished from the village. You are to leave immediately and never return. Your actions have betrayed the trust of your family and the community. You will face the consequences of your deeds, and may the spirit of our ancestors guide you to redemption. Mongi, his heart heavy with shame and regret, nodded silently. The villagers, their faces a mix of anger and sorrow, watched as Mongi was led away, his fate sealed by the council's decision. The night, once filled with the sounds of life, was now silent, the only sounds the distant cries of a lone night bird. As Mongi disappeared into the darkness, the village began to return to its normal rhythm. The fire, once a symbol of warmth and light, now burned low, casting long shadows over the gathered villagers. Nia, now surrounded by the love and support of the community, began her long journey to healing, her spirit unbroken despite the horrors she had endured. Amina, her heart torn but her resolve strong, focused on rebuilding her family's life. The children, though scarred by the events they had witnessed, found solace in the comforting arms of their mother and the supportive embrace of the village. The days turned into weeks, and the village slowly began to heal from the shock of Mongi's actions. Nia, with the support of the community, found a new place to stay and started to rebuild her life. Though the scars of that night would never fully fade, her strength and resilience shone through. Amina, determined to protect her children and provide them with a sense of normalcy, worked tirelessly to maintain their home. She leaned on the support of the village women, who offered their help and solidarity. Together, they wove a new tapestry of life, one that was marked by resilience and hope. Kofi and Amora, though young, displayed a maturity beyond their years. They continued with their schooling and daily routines, finding comfort in the familiar rhythms of village life. The bond between the siblings grew stronger, forged in the crucible of their shared trauma. One day, as Kofi sat under the shade of a large acacia tree, his thoughts wandered back to that fateful night. The memory still haunted him, but he found strength in the knowledge that he had stood up for what was right. He vowed to protect his sister and be a source of strength for his mother. Nia's journey towards healing was a path filled with challenges, but she faced each day with courage. The village women, especially the elder matriarchs, took her under their wing, teaching her traditional crafts and skills. They shared stories of their own struggles and triumphs, creating a bond of sisterhood that uplifted her spirit. One of the elder women, Mama Mwerivu, a wise and kind-hearted healer, took a special interest in Nia. She taught her the art of herbal medicine, a skill that had been passed down through generations. Nia found solace in the knowledge she gained, and it gave her a new sense of purpose. The village council, led by Chief Omori, continued to play a crucial role in maintaining order and justice in the community. They implemented stricter measures to ensure the safety and well-being of all villagers, especially the vulnerable. Chief Omori, deeply affected by the events, made it his mission to educate the younger generation about respect and consent. He organized regular gatherings where elders would share stories and wisdom, teaching the values of compassion, respect, and integrity. Meanwhile, Mongi wandered the lands beyond the village, a broken man seeking redemption. He faced harsh conditions and the solitude of his exile. Each day was a struggle for survival, but it was also a journey of introspection. Haunted by his actions, Mongi sought forgiveness from the spirits of his ancestors. He encountered various challenges and trials, each one a step towards understanding the gravity of his actions and the pain he had caused. One evening, as he sat by a small fire, he encountered an old wanderer who shared a tale of redemption. The old man spoke of forgiveness, not just from others, but from oneself. Mongi listened intently, his heart heavy with regret but also flickering with a small flame of hope. Back in the village, life continued, marked by resilience and growth. The villagers, though scarred, found ways to heal and rebuild. The bond among them grew stronger, a testament to their collective strength and unity. Nia, now a skilled herbalist, became an integral part of the village community. Her knowledge and skills were sought after, and she found fulfillment in helping others. Her journey from victim to healer was an inspiration to many. Amina, though still healing, found solace in the progress of her children and the support of her community. She became a pillar of strength, her spirit unyielding in the face of adversity. The love and respect she garnered from her fellow villagers were a testament to her resilience. The village, united in the aftermath of tragedy, stood as a beacon of hope and resilience. They had faced a dark chapter but emerged stronger, their spirits unbroken. The elders continued to guide and teach, ensuring that the lessons learned would not be forgotten. As the seasons changed, the village flourished, the fields yielding bountiful harvest, and the laughter of children filling the air once more. The night that had once brought darkness and fear was now a distant memory, replaced by the light of hope and unity. Years passed, and Mongi, having faced his own demons, sought to return to the village. His journey of redemption had transformed him, and he longed to seek forgiveness from those he had wronged. The villagers, wary but open to the possibility of change, convened once more to discuss his fate. Chief Omori, his eyes filled with wisdom, addressed the gathering. Mongi seeks to return and seek forgiveness. It is up to us, as a community, to decide his fate. Amina, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions, stepped forward. He has wronged us deeply, but if his heart is truly changed, perhaps we can find it within ourselves to forgive. For the sake of our children and our future, we must consider the possibility of redemption. The villagers, moved by Amina's words, deliberated. The decision was not easy, but they recognized the importance of forgiveness and the potential for change. They agreed to allow Mongi to return, but under strict conditions of atonement and service to the community. Mongi returned to the village, a humble and changed man. He faced the judgment of those he had wronged, and his path to redemption was fraught with challenges. He worked tirelessly to rebuild the trust he had shattered, dedicating himself to serving the community. Under the guidance of Chief Omori and the elders, Mwangi participated in various acts of service and restitution. He sought forgiveness from Nia, Amina, and his children, his heart open and sincere in his quest for redemption. Nia, though initially wary, saw the genuine remorse in Mwangi's eyes. With time, she found it within herself to forgive, her heart lightened by the act of letting go. Amina, too, forgave, her strength and grace a beacon of hope for the entire village. The village, having faced a dark chapter and emerged stronger, continued to thrive. The lessons learned from the ordeal were passed down through generations, ensuring that the values of respect, compassion, and integrity would endure. Mwangi, though forever marked by his past actions, found a path to redemption through his unwavering commitment to the community. His journey of atonement and the forgiveness he received became a story of hope and transformation. The village, united in their shared experiences, stood as a testament to the power of forgiveness and the strength of community. The once dark night was now illuminated by the light of hope, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of a village that had faced its darkest hour and emerged victorious. And so, the tale of Mwangi, Amina, Nia, and the village of Motet became a story passed down through generations, a story of betrayal and redemption, pain and healing, darkness and light. It was a story that reminded everyone that no matter how deep the wounds, the path to forgiveness and redemption was always within reach, and that the strength of a community could overcome even the darkest of nights. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, I am sure you will enjoy our next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to grow our channel. I love you and I will see you in the next one.